I went through all of the lawsuits about this entire debacle. I have been researching this entire situation since Friday, all of Friday, yeah. Since all of Friday, I have been investigating, I have been taking notes, I've been studying, I have my laptop in front of me, I have a Photoshop document with all of the people's faces, their names. I have another document, 9 pages of notes taken from Emily D. Baker's YouTube. She is a lawyer, or she's like been to law school. I don't know much about her except that she tends to cover a lot of, I guess, like lawsuits and like celebrity media and stuff. I think she's at the moment doing a lot of like P. Diddy stuff. But her live streams about the Baldoni Lively case has been really, really interesting, really illuminating. I was actually surprised because what happened through the process of all this is I read Blake Lively's lawsuit Friday through Saturday, and then I think Saturday to Sunday I watched Emily's video, which is a 7-hour fucking live stream. God bless her, she worked so hard on this live stream, and she went through the Jonesworks PR sort of thing. I know it's already getting kind of hairy when it comes to like names and shit, and trust me, I have got a lot of material for you to look at on screen when we get to it, so hopefully it'll not make you as confused, because I know that if for someone to watch this and to have not read all the lawsuits and watched long ass videos about all of it, you're not going to be very familiar with a lot of like the people in this case. So I have tried to supplement that, because I feel like now that I've read all of this stuff, now that I've seen all of it, I feel like I know all of this back to front. Like, it's crazy. And let's see, I think the Blake Lively suit was like 80 pages. And then I didn't read the PR suing because, okay, I read one of them, and then I watched Emily go over two of the other ones, and then I got halfway through the 4th one, and then I watched Emily's live stream about the 4th one through this morning. Oh my god. I'm feeling overwhelmed just trying to explain it, so I think we should just get into it. I think we should just go ahead and show our notes. And I just hope that this is not too confusing for you, because oh my god, right? Okay, so 3 minutes. Sorry, I have to do my timestamp still. Alright, getting started. So in my little document over here, we have a rough timeline of everything that's happened. And I would just like to preface this by saying, like, if you're a stan of like either side, I really hope that you can watch this video all the way through, because I'm going to summarize a lot of what Emily D. Baker said in her live streams. She's a very impartial person when it comes to these things. She's more interested in like the facts of the case. She's interested in what is really happening here, what's the truth. And I think that it's important to have this impartial attitude when it comes to this, because I'm mainly making this video in response to all of the overwhelming support that Justin Baldoni's getting. I'm not trying to tear anybody down. I'm not trying to make like things about like who's right, because I came to this conclusion on my own, but I'm glad that Emily is kind of backing me up in this, where it's like, we do not have all of the information. Let's just summarize, let's just summarize the video right here, right now. We don't have all the information. At the moment, every lawsuit that's come out is really just summarized as like pointing fingers at one another and he said, she said, no you, like that is actually at the moment pretty much all that's happened. And both sides have stated that they have evidence about this, they have evidence about that, and at the moment, from what we've seen, especially from my point of view, especially from Baldoni's cases, I'm not seeing a lot of... I'm not really that convinced by his case at the moment. I will say that I was like halfway through reading his lawsuit against Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, so these people are getting sued by this guy. And now that I'm going through this, I'm realizing there are a couple more people I have not included. So this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be hard. I guess I could actually just explain what all these people are doing here. So I guess we could start with Stephanie Jones. Because Stephanie Jones has kind of started off a lot of what happened, and she was able to provide the evidence that Blake Lively used in her lawsuit. So I hate Photoshop. So yeah. great job. So yeah, Blake Lively, she was able to sue and have some text message evidence against well, not just Ballsagna, but Melissa, Nathan, and Jennifer Abel, and JED WALLACE. And also Taylor Swift is in the picture here, but we won't get to that until much later, I think. So Taste Whistle can kind of just go in the corner there for a second. Okay, so Stephanie Jones. Now, Stephanie Jones was actually the PR manager for Baldoni. I think she started in like 2017. I've seen 2017 pulled out, I've seen 2019. She's been working with Baldoni for a very long time as his PR manager. Okay, now the tea here, I hate to use that word, but the tea here is that Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan, no, wait. Was it Melissa Nathan? No, Jennifer Abel used to work for Stephanie Jones. Okay. Jennifer Abel was actually in charge of the Baldoni account. I think she actually was in charge of the LA branch for Jonesworks, which is Stephanie Jones' PR company. So Jennifer Abel was able to create like a really close connection with Baldoni. She was like the point person for him. It's kind of like when you're at a firm and someone's like, this is my preferred person to go through. Sorry. Jennifer Abel was that person for Baldoni. So then what ended up happening, and this is all alleged by the way, because at the moment we don't have a whole lot of... We're basically waiting for trial and discovery at this point, but what Stephanie Jones thinks happened and what Stephanie Jones alleges in her lawsuit, based on text messages that were extracted from Jennifer Abel's work phone, Stephanie Jones reckons that what ended up happening is that Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan, these two fucking people, Cain and Abel, they were like, hey, what if we took Justin Baldoni, sorry, I keep getting Sarah Nathan in there. Sarah Nathan's not that big of a deal at the moment. Wait, how did I fuck this up so much? Oh, I put Jen and Melissa together, whoops. So yeah, these two people decided, sorry, that they could plant a story negatively about Stephanie Jones, multiple negative stories by the way, and then they could somehow convince Baldoni that Jennifer Abel was not in a right state of mind, or convincing her that Stephanie Jones is like a completely incompetent PR manager. She's off her rocker. She's hemorrhaging clients because she's hysterical. And so they said, well, I'm going to make my own company, Jennifer Abel. I'm going to make my own company, Tag. It's called Tag. And Justin, if you want to come over to my company, we'll take care of you. So what ended up happening is someone leaked to the press that all of the troubles with the It Ends With Us movie, or like the promo and all that shit, that all occurred because Stephanie Jones allegedly said to a reporter that it's all Blake Lively's fault, and then a reporter put that in, you know, a paper or whatever. And then Sony got really angry, I think. Sony got really mad. They were like, who the fuck is this Stephanie Jones, and why the fuck is she saying all this stuff about, you know, Blake Lively? This is just gonna add fuel to the flames or whatever, and it's gonna make everything so much worse, which they were trying to avoid at the time. At the time, they were trying to just keep things quiet, keep things under wrap, because this is a pretty big movie. I think it costs like $25 million to make. I know in comparison to a lot of movies, probably not that big of a deal, but we will see later that there is some speculation that Blake Lively was trying to leverage her fame and power, and that they had to keep conceding to her, because if they didn't, they would lose the movie, they'd lose all the money that they had invested. And of course, big companies, they don't want to lose money they invested, they want to make money. So really crazies, really crazy stuff already. Stephanie Jones. So Stephanie Jones ends up being, as she puts it, like framed for this thing that she never did, which I kind of feel like Stephanie Jones had relegated Jennifer Abel to work on the Baldoni case. Why would Stephanie Jones just out of nowhere start talking to reporters and being like, oh yeah, like, oh, it's totally Blake Lively's fault, and like, this is off the record by the way, but like, oh my god, she's such a bitch. It just doesn't make sense, right? But in Baldoni's lawsuit, I think the one against the New York Post, he says that Stephanie Jones was completely erratic. Actually, no, he says it in the lawsuit against Blake Lively. Now, let's have fun finding that thing again. Anyway, but there's like a whole argument in the Stephanie Jones lawsuit, because Stephanie Jones had extracted stuff from Jennifer Abel's work phone. Now, we don't know for sure if it was a work phone, if it was subpoenaed correctly. We don't know for sure if it was all done in the proper legal standing. So, yeah, it's a little bit iffy there, and Emily reckons we are going to see them fight it out and see them argue whether Stephanie Jones had legally gone through Jennifer Abel's phone or not. Now, one of the key things about them going through Jennifer Abel's phone is that these text messages between Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan, these two people, Cain and Abel, the whole point about that is these text messages were also leaked to the New York Post, or I think it's the New York Post. I keep getting confused with that newspaper. And so there's another lawsuit where Justin Baldoni, he's suing the New York Post for defamation or like false information and stuff, because he's now alleging that there were text messages the New York Post had that sort of exonerated him, and that they chose to go with the story that's more sensational and that's on Ryan and Blake's side, just because like it's like clicks or whatever, right? So there's a lawsuit between Baldoni and the New York Post. I went through that in Emily Baker's stream. I didn't go through that one personally myself, but I do trust her judgment. I do want to go through it myself when I have the time, but at the moment I'm just going through his lawsuit in my own time with Lively and Reynolds. And they're long. Oh my god, they're so long. So yeah, that's kind of like what happened there. It's very, oh my god, it's so fucking messy. But if you go through the text messages between Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan, especially in like the PR lawsuit, I have to say like those text messages are really something. And I do think that there is like a case there for Stephanie Jones to be like, these people were colluding against me, these people were trying to poach my clients, they tried to ruin her reputation allegedly, and you know, everything's alleged obviously. Yeah, so my god, it's crazy. So let's see, page 15. Yeah, so that's all like the text message stuff. So what ended up happening is Baldoni hires Jennifer Abel. Jennifer Abel is the CEO and founder of RWA Communications, which provides public relations services. I think what happened is that in the light of that news story coming out blaming Blake Lively for all the wrong things about the movie or something, that Jennifer Abel was like, hey Baldoni, we can fix this because Stephanie Jones is like fucking useless. And what ends up happening is they hire Melissa Nathan, but these two were already texting way before any of this stuff happened, so I guess they're like friends and stuff. I mean, if you look at their text messages, they're like, they joke around and stuff. Like, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. Yeah, no, these text messages are not really it. Now, when it comes to Jennifer Abel, Cain and Abel, let's look at Cain and Abel for a second. So they decide once Baldoni hires them as like a PR and crisis manager, they decide, let's get JED WALLACE and his team to help us, and so they put him on a retainer, interestingly. And this is kind of where it comes into with Blake Lively's lawsuit. Blake Lively's lawsuit basically is just alleging that there was an astroturfing campaign against her performed by TAG, which is Jennifer Abel's thingamabob, right? Now, if you don't know what astroturfing is, it has been defined as the practice of publishing opinions or comments on the internet, in the media, etc., that appear to come from ordinary members of the public, but actually come from a particular company or political group. So basically, they planted all these stories, they planted all these things. Oh, sorry, TAG is Melissa Nathan's company. Anyway, so they planted all this shit to try and get, they tried to suppress the stories of Justin Baldoni's sexual harassment allegations, or, you know, making people uncomfortable on set. This is in Blake Lively's lawsuit. So that's what Blake Lively is trying to explain. She's trying to explain that she was drowned by all of these fake, well, maybe not fake, but falsely, unorganically made stuff, right? Very interesting. Anyway, of course they deny that this happened, and the way that they try to deny it is kind of funny and like not super, again, not super convinced. To be honest, not really super convinced by either side when it comes to some things, because there's a lot of he said, she said, but interesting with a lot of witnesses, especially like film crew, Sony. There's a lot of witnesses to a lot of things that are alleged, and so I think that we're gonna see a lot of like the truth coming out when we get to like discovery, like I said. Alright, I feel like I'm being so messy about this, so let's go through the timeline. Here is the timeline of how everything kind of happened. I don't know if I'll do another video and update this timeline, because I'm probably missing some stuff, but I think I have everything that's like key. So, May 2023 is when they began producing the film. I think Justin Baldoni was this guy right here. I think he was in communication with the author of the movie's book, Colleen Hoover. I do not have a picture of her, sorry. But he's been in communication with her since like 2019 or 2020 or something. So he had like a 5-year-long relationship with the author of the original book that he made the movie adaptation for. And it's interesting that she ended up unfollowing him after all the, you know, media debacle went down. Actually, the whole like film crew, everyone unfollowed Baldoni, including Colleen Hoover, which, you know, some people would argue like that's quite important, but then as Baldoni argues, it's all due to the fact that Ryan and Blake have this insane Hollywood fame and power. So that's why he's kind of alleging about all of that. Anyway, so June midway 2023, the WGA strike began, bring the film to a halt, and that is on page 17 of the PDF. Do I have this up here? Oh my god. No, I do not. Wait, why don't I have the PDF up? Alright, hold on. I can actually show you because I went through this whole thing. Firefox? Okay. Firefox? Yes. Oh boy. Yep, this is my PDF. Let's see, let's go to page page 17. Why are we going to page 17? Right, so this is all the notes of like the timeline and explaining stuff like that. Let's bring it in a little bit more. Breach of contract. Yeah, so I think they're saying that at this time, why did I, okay, whatever. All right, then July 14th, 2023, the SAG-AFTRA begins to strike. And then September 27th, the WGA strike ends, but not quite ended with SAG-AFTRA, which then that strike ends November 9th. This is all in 2023. Oh my god, so many years ago. And on that day, Blake Lively's attorneys send Baldoni's company Wayfarer Studios attorney protections for return to production, which is on page 29, allegedly. Yes. So a few weeks before filming began, and less than 4 months after Miss Lively had given birth to her 4th child. Oh wait, this is the fitness trainer. Bruh. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my document, but I think the page numbers are fucked. So we won't refer to that anymore, sadly. Actually, wait, I can refer to it on here. Contract agreed. There we go. It's working on my laptop just fine. What a coincidence. Yes. So protections for return to production attached here to is Exhibit A. Yeah, so it was basically like a 17 lists or 17 items that they had to sign and agree to. Yeah, I've got it right here. And they're kind of like what you think they'd be. It's like, number 1, an intimacy coordinator must be present all times when Blake Lively is on set. This is an interesting one. The intimacy coordinator. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. So here we go through all my notes. Intimacy coordinator. Okay. Baldoni suggested that Blake Lively meet with the newly hired intimacy coordinator earlier than filming had started. So this was like months before they were going to get into production. Blake Lively in text says she will meet with the coordinator when they start. So she respectfully goes, I can just meet them when we start, you know? So it's like, okay, whatever. So then Ballsagna suggests that his flat-out refusal, this was a flat-out refusal to meet the coordinator, like, full stop. That's what he's alleging in his case. He's like, oh god, no, like, oh, she doesn't want to meet the intimacy coordinator. What's wrong with her? And he does this a lot where he will screenshot texts with her and will talk to like producers behind her back and be like, in this particular instance, he's like, she doesn't want to meet with the intimacy coordinator. This is gonna stuff up the workflow, but like I can work around it. And I just don't understand why he couldn't just, why couldn't he just say it to her? There's like a few moments in this where there are times where I'm like, you could have just said this to her, and I'm sure she would have been, I mean, I don't know either of these people personally, but I think that some of the animosity comes from the fact that you're not saying things to her face. You're like sort of dancing around her in a bit of a way. Mind you, he admits that he knew right out from the gate, right out even before hiring her on as an actress or actor, he knew she is difficult to work with. And this is another point that comes up a lot, is that yes, we can agree that Blake Lively has been a bitch. Absolutely, she is. I mean, if she is notorious for being difficult to work with, just go, okay, thank you, next. Let's move on to someone else, because I'm sure there's tons of other people who could play the part of Lily Bloom, okay? But no, apparently he was like, I actually find this really genuine. That's what it says in his suit. He found her to be very genuine, and that, like, you know, difficult to work with? Nah, you're just genuine, Blake. I don't know. I mean, it's like, it kind of ends up being surprise Pikachu face. What? The person who's notorious for being difficult to work with is difficult to work with? Like, come the fuck on. Anyway, so that's why I kind of say here, and the producer themselves, when he says like, oh, there's not meeting with the intimacy coordinator is gonna stuff up the workflow, the producer says that's fine if she doesn't want to meet her now. Even the producer is like, she won't meet with her now, that's fine. But it's implied that it's expected that they will do it later, right? Okay, but then there's this extra question, which I don't have an answer for at the moment. Was this intimacy coordinator on strike? Was this the time of the strike? We don't know exactly when this text exchange occurred, but it appears to be before April 6, 2023. Before April 6, 2023. Now, let's see, 2023. Hold on. April. When's April? January, February, March, April. Oh. Okay, so it seems to me that it would not have been around the time of the strike. So I was gonna say like, oh, maybe Blake didn't want to cross the picket line or something, but I feel like she'd mentioned that in the text anyway, instead of like how casual it was, so I don't think it was that. But this is the only evidence Baldoni presents to allege that Blake Lively just did not want an intimacy coordinator. This is all he provides when it comes to that. So I find that very interesting, and I don't find that super I don't find that super, like, what's the word? Convincing? Yeah, convincing's the word. Okay, so protections for return to production. I think this is going to be part 1 out of a video series, because I don't think I'm going to be able to go through all this. Right, so I guess we could summarize it. She basically says like, hey, no one's going to enter or attempt to enter or pressure or request to get into Blake Lively's trailer unannounced, basically, or when she's in a state of undress. Because there were seemingly like one time or a couple times where she was getting makeup removed, and then they like demanded to come into the trailer to like go over things. Or there was like a time where she was pumping milk. We're gonna see pumping milk and breastfeeding used interchangeably by Baldoni's team in an effort to say that she consented to being around them when she was doing those things, right? Or, again, not a very convincing argument. So yeah, so when she does these protections for return to production, Baldoni's perspective on this is that she was leveraging her power because they had already done some production of the film. It was too late to recast. Basically, them and the movie would be fucked if they didn't sort of, I guess, relegate to her demands, which honestly, all of like the things she asks for sounds pretty standard. Pretty standard. I will say though, are her protections for return to production worded in a way where it, if released, sounds very bad on paper. Yeah. Yeah, it does sound really bad. Yep. Does sound bad. Because she asks for an intimacy coordinator pretty much every time that they are even doing a scene. She asks to have that, I guess in a way, protection constantly, whereas intimacy coordinators are only really expected to be on set when, like, there's a simulated sex scene happening, or I guess when they're doing, like, intimacy things. Yeah. So that's interesting. Alright. November 15th, 2023, Wayfarer agrees to the terms. Now, when I say Wayfarer agrees, there's also someone else called Jamey Heath. Now, Jamey Heath pops up a couple times, and there's a particular situation with him that is actually not disputed. It's not disputed at all. And the way that it's worded in Baldoni's lawsuit, it kind of ends up being one of those differing opinions, but ultimately, in my opinion, workplace inappropriateness. So let's put him here. Jamey Heath. Oops. It's hard to type when you don't see your keyboard. It's hard to type. So we have Jamey Heath. So Jamey Heath is also, I think, like a part of Wayfarer Studio. I think that he like co-owns it with what's his name? Baldoni. Wow, I forgot his name. Holy shit, that's sensational. Okay, so January 5th, 2024, production resumes, and then subsequently ends February 9th, 2024. And then in August 2024, the press tour controversy begins. This is when we get all the juicy stuff where social media seemingly explodes over Blake Lively being a BITCH see you next Tuesday. Yeah. So yeah, that's when that started. I remember I was there. I made a video about it. I don't know if it was in August. It might have been September or something, but yeah. August 2nd, Tag circulates a scenario planning doc to Mr. Baldoni. So Tag, again, this is Melissa Nathan's crisis management company. Jennifer Abel is the PR person who has just now made her own company, swiping Ballsagna from Stephanie Jones. Stephanie Jones! I hope you're following this, okay? Alright, great. So, the scenario planning thing, that is on page 6. Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, me. You've made this so easy to look at. Oh my god. It's just a shame I can't show it on the thing. Yeah, so that's August 2nd. Yep, it's all there. This was Exhibit D. Okay, Exhibit D. Now, we are going to see here that text messages are used from Stephanie Jones' lawsuit. So there is a theory from Baldoni's team, and I actually agree with it, is that it seems like Stephanie Jones, her company, or like her lawyers, attorneys, they are most likely working with Blake and Lively's attorneys, just considering how quickly the text messages were turned over to the New York Post and how Blake was able to have the text messages in her lawsuit. And we will see the dates here with her lawsuit mattering a lot, especially in Baldoni's case. He mentions it a lot, which again, okay. So it's Exhibit D. Okay, let's look at Exhibit D. Alright, Exhibit D, and they do actually have the document in here that is from Tag. Now, I'm gonna assume that they sent it to Jennifer Abel's phone and they were able to forensically grab this from Jennifer Abel's phone. That's why I'm thinking how they got this. I'm not really totally sure about that, but that's what I think. Oh, okay. The objective. This is from Melissa Nathan and Cain Abel. This is from them. Protect the reputation of Justin Baldoni, Jamey Heath, and Wayfarer Studios in the lead up, during, and following the premiere of It Ends With Us. Underscore the achievement and efforts of the Wayfarer team in bringing this movie to life, and emphasize Justin and the studio's commitment to their team and making the broader industry a more inclusive space. Which is interesting, because if you look at the cast of It Ends With Us, it's all white people. Doesn't seem that inclusive, if I'm being honest. Which, I'm not here to be like Little Miss Wokemas, but doesn't actually seem that inclusive. Maybe they're saying it's inclusive because of the ageism. Yo, we cast Blake Lively to play like a 21-year-old when she's actually like 40. We're so inclusive. Okay. So in this document, they say, our team will establish a rapid response communication system which keeps Justin, Jamey, Wayfarer abreast of new coverage and narrative trends in real time. And I've highlighted, we will manage media inquiries regarding the news as background sources as sources familiar. So, I don't know why I highlighted that. Tag will confirm outlets intending on covering the story, especially those impactful to Justin, Jamey, and Wayfarer's interests, are fully briefed on the situation, including and not limited to The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline, The Wrap, New York Post, and Daily Mail. Okay. So yeah, it's a very like interesting document to see, but in Baldoni's lawsuit against Ryan and Blake Lively, he says that this was merely a strategy to have, or like a plan in place in case she tried to defame him, because they came to the conclusion that after having that protections for return to production, they were really worried back in 2023, November 9th, they were really worried that something was going to come out at the end of everything and totally ruin everything just because Blake Lively wanted to ruin his life, right? So that's why they had the scenario planning document, apparently. Alright, August 6th. Blake Lively was criticized for her promotional marketing strategy. Yeah, so we did see a lot of that, and I talked about it right here on the Catching Up with Kate podcast, LLC. And I talked about it here, and I don't think I talked much about like the alcohol. Dude, the alcohol brand that she tried to shill. Yeah, I mean, there's no arguing that the promotional plan was shit and stupid. However, in Blake Lively's lawsuit, she says that, according to Exhibit C, Miss Lively and other cast members were under a contractual obligation to engage in media, press, and marketing activities and render promotional services in accordance with the marketing plan. The marketing plan directed the cast to focus more on Lily's strength and resilience, as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence, and to avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. Sony was basically like, guys, we don't want to be fucking downers, okay? We don't want to make people depressed. Depressed people don't go to the movies, okay? So yeah, it is alleged then that in the days leading up to the film's release, Mr. Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and were not appearing with him in public. To that end, he and his team used domestic violence survivor content to protect his public image. I I have to say, I get this vibe so much with Baldoni. Like, if you watch his advertisement with Wells Fargo about, like, a day in the life of Justin Baldoni, if you take into account his fucking podcast called Man Enough, which I guess is like a continuation of his 2017 TED Talk, Are You Man Enough? And then, oh my god, and then he did like a whole TV series called My Last Days or something, which is about terminally ill people. And now he's done a movie where it's highlighting domestic violence survivors, which, it's like, I know, I sound like such a hater-ass bitch saying all of this, but it's such like a, when you make your entire public image about, like, I'm such a good person, you know, like, in the Wells Fargo fucking advertisement he did, he's giving money to like he's giving food to a homeless person. God. And it's like, you can't watch that and just be like, oh my god, he's such an inspiration. It's like, it's a fucking ad. It's a fucking ad. It's all a lie. Same with his engagement video. His engagement video was fucking weird. It was weird and it was cringe. Sorry. It was cringe. And you know what? Blake Lively's about to be really fucking cringe too in his, oh my god. And then in his court case, he brings up a bunch of text messages where Blake Lively is very cringe, but cringe is not the crime here, so I am saying, like, that is my personal opinion. My personal opinion, I don't like the guy. I think he's fucking annoying, and I think to have your whole manufactured persona being about, like, how you're such a good person. Did you know that, according to him, 1% of the film's profits, if it ends with us, will go to, like, domestic abuse survivors? 1%. 1%. When I read that, I was like, you know what? Is that really just the right amount to justify, or to be like, we're not profiting off of domestic abuse, we're actually helping it? Which I will say, that's a loaded thing to go through. Let me see, what's calculate percentage. Sorry, I didn't do very well in math, so I am going to ask Google to calculate something. So yeah, anyway, then what happens is, yeah, she starts getting criticized for it, and then August 8th, TikTok tried to start, you know, figuring out what the situation is, because of course internet sleuths noted that Baldoni doesn't have, like, people following him. That's so crazy. That's so crazy. Okay, so 1% of was it 300? Was it 3 million or 300 million? Oh my god, how much did this movie make? Wait, I need to figure this out. How much money did It Ends With Us make? I think it was 300 million. Was it really 300 million? That's a lot of money, right? 100 million? Ooh. 200? According to People magazine, it made 200 million. Okay, so let's make this 200,000. I think that's 2 million. So then, okay, so then they would be donating 200,000 to domestic abuse survivors if it was 1% of that. Honestly, like, god damn it, Baldoni, he's so good at manufacturing all this, like, good favor. I want to say it's a nice amount of money. It's actually a smart way to, like, kind of donate to things, because then you get the feeling of, like, at least me going to this movie will contribute to something very good. But in saying that, I don't think that was very public, the fact that 1% of the film's profits was going to domestic abuse survivors or whatever. I think that's the case. It wasn't very public knowledge, I don't think. It definitely surprised me when I read his lawsuit. Okay. August 9th, 2024. The film's release date in the UK. Okay. And then August 10th, 2024 was the infamous Blake Lively interview resurfacing, where she and Kirsty Fleur, Yeah. Where she was like, I like your little bump. You remember that? Yeah. That's when that happened. So, yeah. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Now, I don't have the text messages to back up dates at the moment, because this is such a... Guys, I gotta say, this has been such a confusing case, and trying to find all of the relevant info for it is a fucking headache. So I will say that at the moment, I don't have the text messages to back up the things. And even at the moment, the text messages that Stephanie Jones got, which are featured in her lawsuit, they can be interpreted in like a few different ways. And I think at the moment, in Stephanie Jones' lawsuit, the text messages make the most sense there. So it's kind of, you think what you think, I guess. Okay, August 14th, 2024, the fat shaming debacle begins. Now, I actually have a thing about the fat shaming. I have a thing about that. So let's go look at that, and, yay. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Ah, yes, picking up Blake fat shame moment. There's a lot that has been said about this, which I would be embarrassed if I was in anyone's position in this. So I'm glad that I'm on the sidelines. So, it's alleged that there was a scene where Ryle, Ballsagna's character in the movie, would lift Lily, Blake Lively's character, okay? However, Baldoni was concerned with a back injury and asked his trainer, who was introduced to him by Blake, how much she weighed. In the Blake Lively case, they say that there is no scene in which Ryle lifts Lily, and only the script supervisor and crew can attest if rewrites occurred here, or if there was never such a scene to begin with. Okay. Baldoni explains in his suit that there was a lifting scene that he thought was important to storytelling as a director, and as just like a person who tells stories, you know. Really important. But ultimately, him and their team shed it due to the pressure from Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. And there was an alleged incident here where Baldoni was summoned to her penthouse and went to her home, where Ryan Reynolds was furious and was like, why the fuck are you asking about my wife's weight, you fucking bigot? Yeah, so he was curious. Yeah, so that apparently happened. And my comment here is, at this stage, I don't understand why he couldn't just ask her about the weight thing. I know that it's... Look, we all know that it's a kind of a very sensitive topic for women when it comes to talking about our weight, and considering she had just had a baby. I mean, she was still, you know, pumping milk and breastfeeding, for God's sake. She, you know, that postpartum insecurity, it's like, even celebrities and people as, like, unrealistic looking as Blake Lively, even they get insecure about these things. So, like, yeah, I can understand being apprehensive about asking, but to ask her trainer, to circumvent her and ask the trainer, be like, yo, how much does she weigh, by the way? I mean, I got a back injury. Like, I don't know. Of course, I'm characterizing that in the way that I'm interpreting it, but I think that there is a way to ask that. And you can say, like, oh, I don't want it to be misrepresented. That's why when you ask it, you make sure there's people around. You make sure that there's witnesses, so she doesn't think that you're, or she can't pivot it back to you and be like, well, you're asking me questions that are inappropriate. You know what I'm saying? So he definitely could have approached her and been like, hey, I just want to ask you a question. It's very personal, it's very sensitive, I understand that. I need to ask it for my work safety, because I have a back injury and I could do irreparable, well, the more you go on about it, the more you might be sounding like you're calling her like a fat whale. So, you know, it's a sensitive thing, but I do think there's a way to bring it up. I do. And I just don't understand why he had to circumvent her and to go straight to the trainer. And of course the trainer told her about it. And then in text messages, Baldoni says in text messages, damn, he's like a spy. He says that. And it's like, no, you went to the trainer that she even recommended. So she's obviously got a personal relationship with this guy, I guess. She knows him. And he went... The fact that the trainer heard that and went... That's weird. I'm gonna go tell Blake that he said that. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, you know, I'm just thinking about that right now. The trainer himself went and told her about it, so clearly he thought something was kind of like iffy about that. You know, I can really, yeah, like, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe the trainer is just like a gossipy bitch. Don't know. So yeah, oh yeah, and I explained this during this time. It is asked why she stayed on or why the company even kept her. As I said, recasting is detrimental. And verbatim in Baldoni's suit, they say that it could completely sever Wayfarer's relation with Sony and cost millions. And which, in my opinion, can easily explain Blake's reasoning too. She doesn't want to be the reason production fails and the cast and crew lose their jobs. She's also in a sticky situation where if she leaves, she's also going to ruin her own reputation. She's going to be blamed because they're like, oh, well, we have to recast Blake now. Cue the Daily Mail. Blake leaves production midway through amid rumors of a feud between her and director. Creative differences. It's like, yeah, you don't really just leave over creative differences, and if you do, then everyone's gonna think, well, that's a shit opinion. I mean, that's a shit reason to ruin a job, to ruin an entire production. So she had that pressure, and I hope you guys can at least concede on that point. She had a lot of pressure herself to stay. And again, if she really is a victim of sexual harassment, I don't think it's okay to be like, well, why are you staying? I mean, for God's sakes, It Ends With Us is all about why do women stay in domestic abuse situations? That's what it's about. That's what you cannot... Because that's what people always ask about domestic abuse. Why do you stay when you could just leave? And the explanation is always that there is never a perfect victim. There is never a perfect explanation, and oftentimes logic is just logic. You can't logic your way out of a dangerous situation or a harmful one. And that's, of course, if we're to say that it was really, the sexual harassment was really happening. But, of course, there's no, like, concrete yes on that as of right now. There is no way to have a concrete yes on anything right now because each lawsuit is written obviously in such a way that the public can read it, the public can understand it, hopefully, and so that their attorneys' clients can be seen in the best light that they can be. So I think that's really important to consider. And you know, when I was going through the Baldoni lawsuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, it's easy to see how people could be so radicalized to one side because the writing, especially the introduction of Baldoni's suit against them, the writing is so, like, persuasive, but the way that they use words, like, it's so intentional, and it's so meticulously thought out. I found like one typo in like one of the first few pages, but whatever. But apart from that, it's like it's so meticulously thought out, and the wording provided is so specific that they try to conjure up these very specific mental images. And I feel like if you don't have the ability to cut through all of that media literacy, if you don't have that ability, you're going to be on someone's side no matter what. And it's really a sad thing, because it's like, it's so obvious that each lawsuit is made to be in the best of light for that person, especially like Blake and Ballsagna, right? And so I think for you to read his lawsuit and be like, yep, he's right, he's totally in the right, like, I just think that that's not the right take to have. At the moment, the take should be, well, okay, I'll concede to maybe you can lean to a side, but to decide right here and right now who's in the right is wrong. It's just straight up wrong. In Baldoni's suit, interestingly, he goes over the LA wildfires. Oh my god, this whole section was just a big like manipulation of what the public doesn't know about court proceedings. And this is all taken from Emily Baker. So this is from someone who understands the serving process, and she explains how this is kind of, well, in my words, a manipulation of the public opinion. And you kind of see this like threaded through his lawsuit, where he tries to be like, well, these things happened and these things happened, and like, look at Blake Lively in her penthouse suite and all of us down below doing like our things. Anyway, so the LA wildfires serving. So I just have one more thing to say about that. It's like when you it's like when you watch like the things that he creates, there's always this like sob story narrative that's serving of like the I'm Justin Baldoni, and I get it. I get that you need to use Wells Fargo to send money to your wife when she's with the baby. I'm Justin Baldoni, and I get that women have it really hard and men need to stand up for what's right. I'm Justin Baldoni, and I need to go to a men's retreat because work's hard. Okay. In Baldoni's lawsuit, he complains that Blake Lively had sent for the plaintiffs to be served. I hope I'm using plaintiffs alright. But for the plaintiffs, him and his buddies at Wayfarer, to be served during the wildfires from her cushy penthouse, while everyone who was served was already having bad enough time. He describes it in detail, like, we were getting our pets and our children ready for a evacuation, and we were worried about our homes, we were worried about where we were going to live, and you know, we were prepping go bags and we were checking evacuation notices. Like, okay, everyone's doing that. Okay, everyone's doing that. And so a lot of people read that and be like, holy shit, Blake Lively's such a bitch for she's in her cushy penthouse in New York and she's not even dealing with anything. She's probably got servants and she's probably getting her feet manicured, pedicured or whatever. So Baldoni alleges that Blake Lively herself deployed process servers, the people who hand out the suit to the people being like, you've been served, during a dangerous and troubling time. However, you know, sure, it is frustrating and insensitive, but when subpoenas are issued, lawyers send it to the process server, and there will be a designated time frame or period, such as, hey, we got 21 days to serve this, can you serve this within that time period? Then it is up to the servers to deliver in that time frame. They decide. Now, is it possible that Blake Lively's lawyers may have been more specific? Maybe. Yeah, sure, that is possible. However, process servers usually just want to get the job done anyway and move on to the next. And since the fires were happening, I'm not in disbelief that the servers could have been like, hey, everyone's home prepping for the fires. We know that they live here, so they haven't been made to evacuate yet, but everyone wasn't sure if things would hit them. People weren't sure, like, hey, are things going to get worse and we're going to have to evacuate? Maybe. So if everyone's home prepping for the disaster, the servers would be like, hey, we can just serve them right now. We know for sure that they're here, pretty much. So let's just serve them. Is it a shitty time? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it fucking is. I mean, coming from an Australian, wildfires are so devastating. They're so devastating, and the fact that California is having one in winter is just Ballsagna, you know? Alright. That doesn't mean things get paused because you're going through something, right? Like, let's be fucking real here for a second. Just because you're going through something doesn't mean Blake Lively's team is gonna be like, oh, we should hold off on filing this court proceeding, you know, just so that they can go and evacuate somewhere and we just won't ever find them. Baldoni complains about the time that it took for her to initially file, which was in December, around Christmas time. I think it was December 21st or something. And he criticizes her for that, being like, she's a snake lying in wait, trying to wait for like an opportune time to get me. And it's like, okay, well, maybe the timing is a little bit like of a bitch move, maybe, because it was right before Christmas. And I think that has something to do with the way things are processed or like delaying things. So I don't exactly know like why that's so important to him, but maybe we'll find out later. So he complains about her taking the time to file then instead of just filing like immediately after it was done, like the movie. But now he's complaining about the timing in which serving happened. And like I said, it's a case of we don't know how bad these fires are gonna get. It might be really hard to get to the plaintiffs and serve them, especially if they're evacuated. There is a good chance that they won't find them in those 21 days. And that's what Emily Baker also said. And I feel very proud that I came to that conclusion, and then she did too. So this entire part of the Baldoni suit is there for the public to feel sorry for him, because the public doesn't understand process serving at all. Me neither. I only understand it because Emily explained it. And look, that's not to say that like there's no way that Lively's team may have gone, get this to him ASAP or something like that, but still, at the end of the day, serving ultimately is the decision of the server. And seeing as they just want to get the job done and move on to the next, it just makes sense that they received it when they did. Okay? And I'm sorry, like, if they weren't able to properly serve the plaintiffs, Baldoni's lawyers could easily argue that the whole case is fake and they didn't even bother to properly serve us. This is just to save face. Like, they could totally... Emily said that. But they could totally do that, because a point of the serving process is that you serve them the papers. Like, I don't know why they do that, but it's a part of the process, and if you don't do that part of the process, it can be leveraged against you. So I really just don't fucking understand that. Should we just go through this whole document? I don't know. Okay, no, we're going through the timeline. Catherine, we're going through the timeline. So yeah, December 21st, yeah, that's when she accuses Baldoni of sexual harassment in her lawsuit. December 23rd, Baldoni dropped from his WME management after text circulated. Yeah, so I think he argues that these texts that circulated due to the New York Post or the New York paper or something, that is all because of Blake Lively and Stephanie Jones colluding, allegedly. So, okay. So then December 31st, he sued the New York Times for defamation. And that's going to be a very interesting lawsuit, because I think he sued them in California. And so Emily was explaining that that's going to be a very contentious battle about jurisdiction and stuff like that. She thinks that the New York Times will argue for jurisdiction or something like that, or there's gonna be a lot of arguing with that case. And she said she wouldn't be surprised if it was they'd start fighting an anti-slap or something. I don't really understand what an anti-slap is, but yeah, that one she noted in that lawsuit when she went over it, is that it seemed like it wasn't really that focused on what the New York Times had done, but it was very focused on Blake Lively. and then they'd try to tie it back to the New York Times. And the only reason that they have to believe they have some case there is because they believe that, like I said in the beginning, the New York Times allegedly had other messages, other texts that exonerated Baldoni that they just decided to not use. Okay? So that's what they reckon. Emily, and me included, we believe, we have some inkling of belief that they didn't have access to all the texts. I do think that they had the Stephanie Jones text messages, which were from Jennifer Abel's work phone. We don't know if it was work phone just yet. We don't know if it was a personal phone. If they extracted information from her personal phone, could be some problems there for the New York and Stephanie Jones or whatever. Just Stephanie Jones. Could be some problems there if that comes to light. So it will be interesting to see what happens with that. But the reason why Baldoni reckons that they didn't have, that they had texts that exonerated him, is because there's texts now from Melissa Nathan's phone, which are in his lawsuit. So yeah, but Emily Baker reckons they did not have access to Nathan's messages, which would make sense because they had Jennifer's phone, not Melissa's, I guess. So it's very confusing with that. But then January 25th, here we get to, wait, January 25th? Babes, it's January 20th. No, I think it was 17th. Babes, why did you write 25th? I think it was 17th. January 17th. Baldoni countersues Lively and Reynolds. Oh boy. Oh boy. There is so much going on with this. So yeah, I guess I could go through the PR lawsuit. Yeah, so Jonesworks was alleging that Abel and Nathan secretly conspired for months to publicly and privately attack Jones and Jonesworks, breaching contracts and stealing clients and thus business prospects. So that's kind of like the damages she's Miss Stephanie Jones is alleging. Interesting. They secretly coordinated with Baldoni and Wayfarer to create an aggressive smear campaign against Blake Lively that used as an opportunity to drive a wedge between Baldoni and Jones. Yeah, so that's where like they go into the thing that was, oh, it's all Blake Lively's fault, and that Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan were playing like 5D chess, being like, hey, let's plan this story with Katie Warren or something, some other person. Dude, we haven't even got to Sarah Nathan. Holy shit. I think we might just do a really long episode today. Yeah, so that's when they had like the whole smear campaign against Blake Lively that they then used to make Baldoni distrust Stephanie Jones' judgment. And you will see in his lawsuit that he does talk a lot about, like, Stephanie Jones was like crazy. She was like hysterical. He literally says that in his fucking thing. It's like, I'm sorry, but when I read that, it's like, it was giving very like gaslight, misogynistic. Yeah. Yeah, like here we have it in his lawsuit. Wayfarer and Baldoni's erstwhile PR firm was embroiled in a personal and professional crisis. Jones' increasingly erratic behavior had driven away not only high-profile clients, but also her right-hand woman, plaintiff Jennifer Abel. Abel, who oversaw Jonesworks' Los Angeles office. Jones' behavior grew more and more bizarre as she lashed out at loyal clients, like Wayfarer, in rage-filled rants. Like, okay, well, if there's evidence of this, then show us the evidence. Show us the evidence. So he kind of explains that she's out of control and that her actions were not aligned with Wayfarer and their interests. And then saying she had a final outburst against Wayfarer in which she outright refused to comply with their direct instructions. is there a paper trail here? Is there something here that can prove this? But saying that she had increasingly erratic behavior that was driving away high profile clients, like, I want to see that. I want to prove that. I want that proven, because there will be proof of that. Someone who's acting erratic and like crazy, quote unquote crazy, they're not going to be like secretive about the way that they're acting because they're not aware of it. They think that they're acting normal. So to me, this felt like classic gaslighting from Baldoni. Seriously, classic fucking gaslighting. So yeah. Oh. Hey, Baba. Oh, my cat. Oh, sorry. My cat wants to go out. There you go. So there we have that part. Yeah. So anyway, Jones is kind of saying like, yeah, they had that smear campaign that they devised, and then they publicly pinned the blame on Jones, when Jones had no knowledge or involvement in this campaign. Interesting. If there was no proper subpoena of the text messages, then Stephanie Jones might be in hot water for releasing them in her lawsuit. But again, it depends on the NDA that her employees signed. As Emily said, most NDAs have a clause about requiring to tell employees whether they get subpoenaed or not. I don't know. Yeah, I wonder if we're going to see employee contracts here for both Blake Lively and Jennifer Abel, because employee contract stuff kind of gets brought up a lot here. Which is interesting that no one has really supplied that, but maybe they need to go through different processes for that. If there was no proper... Okay. So Baldoni Wayfarer might countersue saying, hey, these texts getting released violates NDA. So that could be a thing that happens. So yeah, we're seeing here 3 PR agents, 1 PR firm. That then splits into 2 PR firms. August. Yeah, right. So I don't write this. Preserve reputation out of fear of misogyny comments coming out. Right. That's what that's actually what Abel said to Melissa, I believe, in a text message. So Baldoni, Wayfarer, and Heath turned to Abel, Melissa Abel, who had become a point... Bruh. I'm getting confused by the names now. Oh no! Oh no, it's not working anymore. I've forgotten who everyone is. Alright, never mind that. Abel then brought on Melissa Nathan to help manage the situation. Right, so yeah, Abel and Melissa, they're like talking behind the scenes the whole time. Even when she's still working with Stephanie Jones. These two are 2 peas in a pod. By the way, is it just me or is Jennifer Abel's picture like giving AI? Apparently it's from her LinkedIn, but bruh, that is AI. Yet another reason to not like her. Alright. Yeah, so Emily Baker was speculating that Jones and Blake Lively's teams could be working together, considering how quickly the phone conversations were turned over. So I do think that's interesting, and I agree, like, it just doesn't make sense any other way. But I mean, in saying it makes sense. They have a common enemy, right? Stephanie Jones is pissed at Cain Abel and Ballsagna. Blake Lively is also pissed at Cain Abel and Ballsagna. So it really only makes sense that they share over information. I think they have a vested interest, both of them, for ruining these people. I think out of everyone here, though, in my opinion, I think Stephanie Jones is like the only person here who has like most probable cause. I don't know if that's the right word, but like she seems to be the one who got like really, really fucked over. And if she really was like in a fine state of mind, I feel really bad for her if like everything was just like Totally fucked over. But then again, there are allegations that Stephanie Jones was like a monster boss. She was like also a bitch, so at the end of the day, I don't think anyone in this whole story is like even anything. Like, they're all flawed people by the sounds of it. Alright, yeah, so the text messages in Stephanie Jones' lawsuit, which are also used in Ryan Blake's, were extracted using phone extraction software, and they are not screenshots. Now, whether or not the phone was extracted under proper legal conduct will be a key point that is argued over in Stephanie Jones' lawsuit. Yeah, because Stephanie is suing Jen, Nathan, and Ballsagna, I believe. So yeah, there's gonna be some fighting over that, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, so employers are able to extract phone information if you were supplied a work phone, and you can be forced to hand in your work phone. And then there was one of these text messages where either Jennifer or either Cain or Abel said, "It's sad because it just shows you how people really want to hate on women." I don't remember what I wrote that. But it's no context text message that was very pick and choosy, and it's hard to know who it's exactly about. We're not really quite sure it's about Blake Lively, but this was said after the time Stephanie Jones had like some weird pop-ups of things against her in the media. There was even a website called stephaniejonesleaks.com, which they haven't figured out yet who made the website, but it was like a website based on just like leaking things about her that are like, I guess, pretty damning things. Not super sure because the website was taken down very quickly. So again, we think that will be discovered sorry, during the lawsuit with Stephanie Jones. Yeah. I said, is it possible it's about both Blake Lively and Stephanie Jones? Is it possible? Not sure. I think I was wondering that because I believe the stuff hating on Stephanie Jones wasn't that long after. No, I don't know. It's hard to know because some text messages are just all over the place when it comes to the lawsuits. It's so hard to figure out the timeline for some things. But I really do want to go through the text timeline. But again, the text can be very pick and choosy, especially in Blake's lawsuit. We see the text messages used very differently in both Stephanie and Blake's lawsuits, so it's hard to know what some of it's really about. And in Baldoni's lawsuit about the text messages, he gives the ones that were excluded. Now, this has been something that a lot of people have talked about, being like, here's the ones where they excluded text messages, and I have to say, again, this was a very, like, oh my god, who cares part of the case. Because, oh my god, the stuff that he's arguing about is, it'll be like this text message thing where it's like, hey, wow, we really got him, good job, Jed's team has really changed the narrative. And then they'll have some text messages after that being like, okay, let's get on a Zoom call. And literally all Blake's thing did was just remove those inane texts that don't matter. Jed Wallace, by the way, Jed Wallace. That's also not him. I know it's been an hour in, but that's not actually Jed Wallace. I just gave him like a cowboy guy because it's Jed Wallace, guys. Jed Wallace from Texas. I think he's from Texas. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, so there were also text messages between Cain and Abel discussing how Ballsagna sucks. And I liked Emily's take on this, where she was like, is this necessary in an employment suit, or is this just throwing shade? Is Stephanie Jones' attorneys just throwing shade? Yes, it is unnecessary, but it is factual. It is factual. My opinion of this, I think matters more to Blake's case, because Cain and Abel discuss Baldoni being misogynistic and having multiple HR complaints filed against him. And, you know, Emily does hedges by saying, like, well, it's not expected that every PR manager will like their clients, but I think this particular criticism about misogyny and the HR complaints, I think that is the key point there. I think that, in my wording, highly indicative of what sort of person he is when he's working with people he trusts, people he entrusts to protect his reputation by any means necessary. He's paying them a lot of money, I'm sure. We do get text messages discussing their payment. So he's paying them so much money and expecting confidentiality. I'd say Cain and Abel have seen him in a vulnerable state where there are no cameras about, where it's private conversation, and it's probably one of the most potentially career-ending moments of his life, so you could expect that he's gonna be a bit unhinged in the DMs, I reckon. So I think this goes further than just, like, being annoyed at your clients, in my opinion. And that's what I think about that. Okay. Yeah, so more on about, like, Wayfarer's, Baldoni's company Wayfarer discontinuing work with Jonesworks. Yeah, spurred from a potential situation where Jennifer Abel, this chick here, planted negative stories and blamed it on Stephanie Jones to Baldoni in an attempt to manipulate him. So that's what I'm talking about the 5D chess here. We're seeing that 5D chess moment happening here, which I was thinking about this last night when I was trying to get to sleep. I was like, it's interesting. Stephanie Jones' suit alleges 5D chess by Cain and Abel, and then Ballsagna also alleges like this 5D chess between Ryan and Blake on him with Taylor Swift. Oh my god, allegedly. And then in Blake's lawsuit, she's just kind of talking about like sleazy Hollywood people. I don't like in Blake Lively's lawsuit, it's like a classic tale of like a Weinstein type situation, or maybe not Weinstein, but it's like a classic like sleazy Hollywood, you know, CEOs or like financiers or whatever, and it's just a general like vibe of like objectification of women. It's interesting how different all these lawsuits really are. Yeah. So then Abel was telling Baldoni like, hey, drop Jonesworks and go with me. And the interesting thing here is it's very big potential that Wayfarer did legitimately think that Jonesworks was breaching their contract, because in Jonesworks' lawsuit there's a whole thing about not paying her the full money that she's owed. So if they believed that she was breaching her contract, then they might be like, oh, we're not going to pay you the rest. And it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Wayfarer was paying $25,000 a month to Jonesworks, which also included 25% commission for all speaking engagements. They were milking him like a cow. They were milking him. I'm sorry, $25,000 a month? That's crazy. So, yes, Emily did say she thought that it might be like a contract that was like a hybrid management PR one. I'm now not so sure about that because he did have WME with him at the time, so I don't know about that, but then again, they could have different contracts than what you might think. So, dunno, whatever. Yeah. So yeah, they might have had a reason to leave abruptly if they did believe she was breaching contract. So there's an interesting thing about that. Yeah, and then here's the thing I already talked about. Jamey Heath heard from Sony, this guy here. He's also a partner in Wayfarer Studio, I believe. And yeah, he heard from someone from Sony that someone named Stephanie Jones responded to Daily Mail saying Blake Lively was to blame, which then escalated things. Presumably it made Blake Lively furious and the situation worse. So I couldn't find anything from the Daily Mail about saying that a source said that Blake Lively was making everything bad. I feel I saw something like that, like a headline back when the whole thing was happening, but it's been so hard finding any of these articles because anytime you mention like Baldoni or Blake, it's just all newspapers about like what's happening right now, and I really don't need to look at that. I really don't need to look at that. Oh my god, we're going over so much. So yeah, this all occurred on the 8th of August 2024. Wow. Jones is alleging that Abel planted the story and told Sony it was Jones on the 8th of August. Oh my god, can we jump back to the timeline here? August 8th. Oh. August 8th. I don't know why that's kind of blowing my mind at the moment. What the hell? So it really seems like all of this happened just so quickly. It's a little bit sussy, I think. Anyway. Yep, so I already talked about the subpoena stuff. Malice in a lawsuit means reckless disregard for the truth. It doesn't mean the same thing that we think it means in English. In legal English, that's what it means. Yeah, so we've already done... Oh yeah, so this is important actually. Jones alleges in summary that Abel performed a mastermind 5D chess plot utilizing her connections with publications to plant a specific negative story about the feud, and then blamed it on Jones with the intention to poach Baldoni, and thus quitting and creating her own PR firm. By ruining Jones' reputation, it made Jonesworks clients vulnerable to further being poached, which I think is what happened. What I have to say about that, there are a lot of text messages that I feel like kind of back this up. There are text messages where Jennifer Abel admits to taking sensitive documents from the servers at Jonesworks before she left, saying something like, oh, Stephanie closed the servers, but I have like hundreds of email accounts or something. Again, some context missing there, but at the moment it seems kind of like... And also when it comes to the planning of the stories with Cain and Abel here, guess what? Melissa Nathan, her sister is Sarah Nathan. Now, I put a question mark here because I'm not actually sure if this is her sister, so I just thought putting a face to a name might be helpful, but I don't know for sure if that's confirmed them. But I do kind of see like similarities. Unfortunately, the only fucking picture of Melissa Nathan you can find is like this, or like blurry 2013 like piss yellow filters that we used to love. I'm not gonna lie, her photos do slap. Alright, so then the Justin Baldoni lawsuit against the New York Times. So he alleges that the paper had evidence that there were no mishaps or wrongdoings on the set, but they still went with a salacious false narrative. And I'd like to say that Emily broke this down as like, look, legacy media, newspapers, are becoming obsolete. They are. And they are trying to keep up with like the times. They're trying to keep up with like the moving social media stuff. So maybe there is an argument to being like they went with a salacious false narrative, but again, if they can prove that they had the Melissa Nathan texts and they just decided to like not go with it, that will be pretty harsh for the New York Times, but still. Yeah, so then through the text messages between Ballsagna and Cain and Abel, Jen Abel old number do not use pops up a few times, so we think that that could be the phone that was scraped by Jonesworks. Justin Baldoni's suit has phone screenshots, so it's unknown which phone it's from. It could be multiple different phones. I find it a little bit annoying that he includes screenshots. He does have some that are like forensically extracted, but for the most part it's all screenshots, which I know there's this argument for like doctoring in Blake's thing, doctoring text messages, I have to say screenshots give that vibe way more than that. Justin Baldoni alleges the text messages were criminally altered in Blake's lawsuit, and we are going to get an emoji court, emoji gate. We will be getting emoji gate because there's this text message where they're like talking about negative stories about Blake, and then there's an emoji, like the upside down smiley face emoji. Now, I want you to tell me, what the hell do you use the upside down smiley face emoji for? What do you use it for? Because I have this discussion on stream sometimes where some emojis that people use, I interpret in a very different way to how I would use them. And so it's always interesting hearing what people, oh, like, I use the upside down smiley face emoji for me. I use it when I'm annoyed. I use it when I'm annoyed. Yeah, but they're saying that it's sarcasm. That's what Baldoni's suit alleges, and that the fact that Blake Lively's extracted text message pictures do not show the upside down smiley face emoji, that proves that they doctored them criminally. That's what they're saying. That's what they're alleging. Let's get it down. Let's get it up. Upside down smile emoji. Just so we can all understand. It's this emoji. Wow. It's like that, but that. I've got to save this document. So yeah, we will get a court argument over what emojis mean, which is gonna be interesting. Now, Emily, with her expertise, she explains why there might not be an emoji in the Blake Lively text messages, and that's because the software Celebrite extraction, which is what they use to forensically extract phone information, you generally see an indicator of an emoji, or are usually blank boxes. That's usually an indicator an emoji was put in there. But it depends on the version of the phone, the iOS, and it depends on the version of Celebrite. So there really isn't enough information to confirm if the texts have been altered. Now, does the upside down emoji change the context of that whole thing? Oh yeah, I don't think I gave context for that. So the text message that occurred was, yeah, they were talking about like negative stories, and then I think Melissa, Nathan, or Jennifer were like, that's why you hired me, right? I'm an expert, I'm the best. And then they use that emoji. I don't know, but we will get a court argument over that. Oh yeah, and then like Justin Baldoni puts in his lawsuit against Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds that they removed these texts between Nathan and Abel talking about being offline temporarily due to reception while heading to the airport, because they were kind of joking around in that area, like afterwards. So he's alleging that because they started joking about being at the airport and not having reception, that text message above was also a joke. So I don't know, to me it seemed like a completely different conversation. Didn't seem relevant, and I think that's why they removed it, but again, we need more information. Yeah, so emoji gate, love that. Right, so there was a text message that Blake Lively didn't include in her suit where one of the PR people says, damn, this is unfair because it's also not me, when referring to, like, I think there was some negative stories. And my reasoning for this is that because Melissa, Nathan, Jennifer, Abel had JED WALLACE on, I thought maybe they're referring to these this shift being not her doing but his doing. But there are times when they do mention JED WALLACE's team shifting the narrative because they have their own methods. There's even a text message where they're all in a group chat saying like, hey, this is a great story, we should boost it. And then they're like, thanks, I'll move it on to the team. Why would you see a TikTok negatively talking about Blake Lively, assuming, and then say, we're gonna boost this? One, what the fuck is a boost? Why are you boosting this? And how is that not just like damning right out the gate? I don't understand how they're gonna argue that, but maybe there's more context we're missing. So yeah. Alright. So then we have right, Leslie Sloan is Lively's PR person. Leslie Sloan, her PR person, is actually getting sued, as well as Vision PR or something. So yeah, so Baldoni is actually doing this thing where he's kind of flipping it and being like, hey, actually what happened here is Leslie Sloan. I wonder if we should get a picture of her. Leslie Sloan. So actually Leslie Sloan's the one who planted all these terrible stories about Blake Lively to make her a martyr, and that Leslie Sloan's doing this 5D chess. Oh my god. I don't think I can find a picture. Oh, that's a good picture, actually. Hold on. Alright, here she is. Leslie Sloan. PR person. So yeah, now they're saying like Leslie Sloan was doing up to no good, getting Blake Lively trashed in the media so that she could then blame it on Ballsagna and Cain Abel. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's like a family tree of just disaster. Anyway. Oh my god. The birthing video. Okay. In Baldoni's suit, he states that Blake Lively mislabeled the footage of Mr. Heath's wife giving birth as pornographic. And in her suit, she states that she initially believed it was, and then she did realize it was like his wife giving birth. So, you know. So then Baldoni, in his suit, says that Blake Lively was distorting the birthing video and turning into something of sexual misconduct, a reprehensible thing to mention or to allude to, when in reality it was a benign event and a deeply personal video with no sexual overtone. Still highly inappropriate. So Baldoni's reasoning is that they were getting ready for a birthing scene, you know, in Blake Lively's in the movie Blake Lively gives birth, simulates birth. As you may know, she has 4 children. She's given birth 4 times, so I think she's intimately aware of the birthing process, right? Just what I think. And so in Baldoni's suit, interestingly, he mentions that or it's mentioned that Mr. Heath showed the birthing video at the request of the director, and the director being Ballsagna. So I thought that was very interesting that it's mentioned like that, plain and simple. Baldoni told Heath to show Blake Lively the video of his wife giving birth. Okay, well, very interesting stuff. So they don't deny that it happened. They don't deny it at all. So it did happen. Now, I want you to think of it like this. It's highly inappropriate. You do not conduct that sort of behavior in the workplace for this very reason, is that someone could look at that and be like, I'm uncomfortable with this. I did not consent to seeing your naked wife giving birth, because she was naked. She was having a natural at-home birth. I think it was a water birth, actually. Yeah. And Mr. Heath said that, oh yeah, so what happens is he shows the video to Blake Lively, and then Blake Lively's like, please stop, that's inappropriate. And then he's like, my wife's not weird about this. Like, it's my wife. She's not weird about this. And then Blake Lively's like, does she know that you're showing people her birthing? Yeah. Now, Baldoni in his lawsuit does mention that the birthing video was like, it made sense to show it to her because they were getting ready for it. He also mentions that she wanted to see it and that she wanted to just see it after she was done eating. This story doesn't line up with Blake's. Blake explains it that she was with her assistant and they were like walking somewhere and Mr. Heath just showed up and just showed it to her or something. So that's kind of strange. I don't know why they're both saying two very completely different things, two very different situations, so doesn't make much sense. Who's telling the truth? We don't know for sure. We just know that for sure Mr. Heath showed his wife giving birth. So, yeah. Emily did say in an employment workplace law perspective, any footage shown of any person completely nude could be a problem, but it could depend on the context and more info that we don't have yet. Is it appropriate context in the workplace prepping for a birth scene? We do take into consideration Lively has given birth 4 times herself. Does she need to see that? Dunno. Yeah, in my opinion, she doesn't need to see home birth footage. And if she said no and was still shown or shown without consent, it's a problem. But it sounds like there were probably witnesses around, so yeah. Yeah, so Baldoni's suit explicitly states that any suggestion that Heath engaged in the exhibition of pornographic or inappropriate content is false. Heath informed Lively that his wife condoned his displaying of video, but did Lively condone or consent to it? Just because it makes sense to have an educational aspect if they're doing a birthing scene, it still matters if it was agreed to. So, are we going to see them providing evidence that Blake Lively wanted to see it? So far, we have not seen any evidence for that. And we need more information. Alright, breastfeeding. There was a big thing about breastfeeding. There's a lot of things about breastfeeding, pumping milk, babies, birthing in general. Okay, I'm gonna give you my opinion as a woman. I find that Mr. Heath and Baldoni have a weird... I'm gonna say they have a weird fetish about, like, the right way to give birth. They have a really weird fetish about it, I have to say, because it just pops up so frequently that it really is off-putting to me as a woman. They talk in Baldoni's suit about how they both have children, they both have wives, they're very comfortable with, like, the whole breastfeeding and birthing process. Baldoni at one point states that his wife, at one point, he thinks that women should give birth naked. And for a male feminist to come and tell me how I should give birth and what the right way to give birth is like, fuck off. Actually, fuck off. You do not get to tell a woman the right way to give birth. It's like, I know this is in the context of the movie where he's like, oh, my wife, you know, when she was giving birth, she ripped off her like, her whole, what is it, the whatever they give you, you know? She ripped it off. Okay, she did that. Good for her. I'm glad that she was comfortable. To say that that's like what every woman should do, miss me with that. Are we still saying that? Miss me with that. And then, like, Heath showing the birthing video of his wife. It's a natural birth. She's nude in the video. We get to see a screenshot of it. She's nude in the video. It's a water birth. It feels like there's this weird obsession with, like, the way women give birth. And just, like, I don't care. Anyway, so breastfeeding. Baldoni and Blake Lively at one point want to go over their lines for the movie. However, Blake Lively was pumping breast milk at the time. And so for this one occasion, there is a text of Blake Lively saying, "I'm just pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines." Yeah, so does an invite one time mean every time? Also, pumping breast milk is a lot easier to cover up than it is when nursing a baby. Baldoni's suit mentions that him and Heath are very comfy around breastfeeding mothers and have kids of their own, and also Baldoni mentions his amazing, incredible wife co-founded a company that makes breastfeeding garments. Oh my god. So he's so familiar with this whole process. He's such an ally. Dude, his lawsuit never fails to find a moment to glaze him, which makes sense. It's kind of the purpose. So, Baldoni continues to say that Lively breastfed during many production meetings in front of both of them, but breastfeeding and pumping gets used synonymously. I think that's the right word. They both get used the same exact way. And I have to say, look, I'm not a mother. I haven't experienced breastfeeding or pumping. However, I've seen the pumping devices. I've known women who do pumping. Pumping, like I said earlier, can be covered up. It's not as like overt as breastfeeding. So the fact that they keep messing up like breastfeeding and pumping is extremely confusing, but also it's not the clarity that we need. If they were to say like, oh, she was breastfeeding at all the meetings, she was breastfeeding on set, she was just like popping her titty out and just going, you know, bottoms up to the baby, sure, okay, then I'd be like, yeah, you know what, it sounds like she was really okay doing it, and then to come back around and be like, actually no. But then it also I'd say it like opens up the question of like, when can we withdraw consent and stuff, but I do feel like if she was that comfortable in doing that, then yeah, I'd be more inclined to believe Baldoni, but that's not the case. The case is he confuses breastfeeding and pumping many, many times, and uses the term breastfeeding and pumping, but then never says moments when it was breastfeeding and when it was pumping. I don't know. It's confusing. Okay, the case where Blake Lively alleges that the men came into a trailer while she was topless, unannounced, is denied by Baldoni and Heath. They were invited into a trailer alongside a female producer, Baldoni, and a Sony rep. At this point, she was actually breastfeeding, so they do say she was breastfeeding. But given that prior they have confused breastfeeding and pumping, it's hard for me to read this and be like, okay, was she actually breastfeeding or was she pumping? They say she wasn't topless, but having makeup removed from her collarbone, fully covered. But then that leads me to be like, well, don't you have to be kind of topless to breastfeed? Unless you have a special, you can get special tops that'll break away easily. But then they needed access to the collarbone to remove makeup. So we bring into the question, like, how much of the décolletage area did they have access to? And how was she not topless, breastfeeding, but also getting makeup removed here? Like, what is she wearing? Because it sounds to me that she's just topless. Because I just don't understand it. You're having a baby here, breastfeeding, you have your makeup here. It just sounds like the easiest thing there would be to be just topless. That's it. I feel like there's no arguing that. Okay, so then there's furthermore arguments in the Baldoni suit where they detail a moment where Heath made eye contact with Blake and then immediately apologizing, then Blake saying, I know you weren't trying to cop a look. Okay, I did say here, it doesn't really sound like something she would say, but that's just my opinion. If she wasn't topless though, why would he be worried? And if everyone was as comfy as Baldoni suggests, why is that even an issue? I don't get it. And of course, Blake and Baldoni's accounts of these situations are totally different. Who's telling the truth? We don't know, but fortunately, it sounds like this happened with many witnesses. We've got witnesses from Blake's side, her makeup team. We got witnesses where there's Sony. I want to hear from Sony. I want to know what Sony has to say about this. I really do. Yeah, but it's one of those cool things where like once we get to like statements, I get like witness statements, I think, discovery and stuff like that, a lot is going to be revealed through that. And look, I'll be the first to say, I don't want to be on anyone's side, but like I do want to support Blake Lively if on the chance that this was really like she felt sexually harassed. I want to support her like that, even if she's been a bitch. I want to support her, right? But yeah, of course, if evidence comes out that there are lies, if evidence comes out that there's a very clear person here telling the truth and the other one's lying, I will absolutely be the first person to be like, oh, okay, you know what? Changing my mind about that. And I want the truth. I want the truth, but I'm just so sick and tired of everyone just being like, Baldoni, Baldoni, Baldoni. Right. Oh, the sexy comments. Okay, so in Blake Lively's suit, she refers to a moment where a crew member was wearing leather pants and Baldoni commented saying they were sexy. Baldoni, interestingly, so far does not refute this, but instead in his suit, he talks about something else. He doesn't refute this exact moment so far. I will hedge that by saying I haven't been through his whole suit, okay? Okay. So, sue me. Kidding. But instead in this suit, he shows text between him and Blake Lively talking about her character dressing sexy for a scene and what makes it sexy. Saying that Blake Lively is the one who set the tone for conversation and that said that, like, anytime from here on that he says something that she's sexy, she's the one who started it. That's basically what this argument was all about. But the other incident about the sexy pants, so far not mentioned at all. I haven't seen anyone fucking mention it either. So we don't know. The only people we know who've mentioned multiple HR complaints is, interestingly, Cain and Abel, the people in his fucking team. They're the ones who have said in text messages that he has multiple HR complaints. So, I don't know. And who better to know than the people trying to protect him from his problems? I mean, it's like, if you're trying to protect your client from things, you need to know what they're doing. It's like whenever you see a lawyer, they're like, hey, I need to know, did you do this? What happened? Tell me everything. Ugh. Oh yeah, sexual harassment claims can actually be made from a conversation between two other employees in the workplace. So Blake is in her right to file against Baldoni, even if that sexy leather pant conversation was between him and a crew member. She is well within her rights to do that. That's from Emily Baker. Alright. The sexy and hot comments in the car. With other film... It wasn't in the car, it was actually in a bar. So I don't know where I wrote that. With other film crew, it's justified by Baldoni simply because... Okay, the sexy and hot comments that he made towards Blake Lively, he justifies because in a text message in May 2024, she mentioned that wearing a beanie for her character was the sexier option, and not that she wanted her character to be specifically more sexy. He says that she was saying she wanted to be sexier. Now, I think we've all seen that infamous photo of her where she's like wearing a beanie and she's dressed as her character and everyone hated it. And she was saying the beanie was sexier. Like, look, I'm not gonna lie, the text messages he shows about her cringe and like completely off base. I don't know why the beanie is supposed to be sexier option. But yeah, so the main argument about that here is that just because one time she said, let's go with the beanie, I think that's like the sexier option, but like I can show you the other options. That's like what she says. I don't think that sets the tone to then comment on her body. I don't think that allows you to do that. But I did get up to this point where Baldoni was mentioning that in this particular circumstance, he wasn't actually calling her hot. He was saying, oh, you should take off your coat, it's hot in here. and that she must have like misheard him or something and thought he was calling her hot. But then the reason why she interpreted it that way is because at the time she was breastfeeding or milk, whatever. She was fucking lactating, right? And so she had worn a low-cut dress or top, and she had a lace bra underneath, I think. That's what they said. That's what she said. And she said that she was wearing a coat to conceal it because she didn't want to feel like exposed. And so he was insisting she take off the coat and that her bra looked sexy or something, or I don't know. And then she was like, that's not what I'm going for. And he said, sorry, hot. And then she was like, it's not what I'm going for either. And then he's like, sorry, I guess I missed the HR meeting. Oh my god. Alright, so we already talked about the intimacy coordinator. Right, this is my own speculation, but oh my god. The weird obsession with birth and babies. It's so weird. Baldoni, in his suit, says that Blake Lively embarked on a mission to strong-arm Sony into giving her full control of the movie, while everyone else was on the film becoming frantic and unsettled by the usurpation of their roles. Wonderful Baldoni remained resolute that they would continue to take the high road and be proud of the beautiful baby they had all made together. Don't ever say that. If you're my boss, don't ever say that to me. We did not make a baby together. We did not. I get they were very passionate about the project, but stop. Okay. Again, that's my speculation. That's my opinion. That's just what I think. Yeah. I genuinely think Baldoni and Heath are very, very obsessed with, like, this subject. In my opinion. Alright, the dark arts. Number 25 of his lawsuit. To suggest, as the Times does, that plaintiffs engaged in dark arts to destroy Lively's reputation is to ignore that Lively had long-standing reputational challenges. They say that in his lawsuit, that people were alleging that he engaged in dark arts to destroy her reputation. Now, the way that they worded this is very particular. It's particularly it's a type of persuasive writing where they write a situation that's so ridiculous and so uncharacteristic and impossible that it's kind of like a straw man argument, actually. Oh my god, I think this is actually a straw man fallacy where they're taking the argument from Blake Lively's perspective and being like, look at how ridiculous their argument is. They're arguing we use dark arts to destroy her reputation that already had pretty big challenges. That is insane. And the fact that they're resorting to such a method of writing, baby, I'm getting red flags with that. I'm getting red flags with that. If they're gonna use such like a fucking obvious fallacious argument about that, oh my god, that is so stupid of them. But the thing is, people eat that the fuck up. Everyone's eating it up, being like, oh, they wrote the dark arts and that thing. And that's totally what Blake Lively was alleging. Dark arts, they're the ones. Baldoni's the one that mentioned dark arts. No one's mentioned dark arts. They're like positioning the argument of like creating a smear campaign as and equating that to dark magic from like Harry Potter. If you don't read that and think that Ballsagna's insane for including that in his lawsuit, or his lawyers are insane for including that, go by. That's insane. Alright, we talked about the fat shaming thing. Yeah, we talked about that. Right, so a lot of Baldoni's lawsuit case so far, from what I've read, is detailing how she had a hostile takeover of the movie. And I think it's very interesting because I do find myself feeling persuaded on his side of things with this, because there are a lot of text messages that are him sort of screenshotting Blake's requests, and then he's in a group chat with all the producers being like, guys, she's asking for this again. And it is very interesting to me. It is very interesting. And I do find myself agreeing with things. again, I haven't finished his lawsuit, but it seems to me there could be some truth here from both sides. I do think though, if she did take over the project, and then if she actually was like using her Hollywood connections with T-Swizzle and Ryan Reynolds to pressure him, if that's true and that comes out, totally disavow Blake. But at the moment we really only have text messages between him and fellow producers. What it does prove is that the producers did not like her. That is 1000% confirmed. There were people who did not like Blake Lively. Okay. And, alright, let's read through this. Blake Lively interfering with the director's cut, a wholly unprotected period. Baldoni states in his suit that Blake requested to join him in the editing bay so that she could give thoughts on the final edit. Lively has 20 years of experience in the entertainment business and grew up in a family deeply involved in the entertainment field. So she knows that this is a legitimate protected period for the director. Like, it's actually like in the guild stuff where like the director is allowed to have like 10 weeks of editing just like completely by himself. And Baldoni like goes on like, this is such an incredible time for the director, like, okay, yada yada, whatever. Yeah, so she wanted to be a part of that, and Baldoni and Wayfarer and Sony reluctantly agreed to give her access for 2 days. And then the suit says it's weird or notable that despite her allegations way past by now of Baldoni making her uncomfortable, she seemed to seek out close or prolonged time with him in a confined space. And it's like, well, I mean, you can also turn that the other way around, where it's like, no, she felt passionate about the project and she put her feelings for the project above whatever other feelings she had, and that she was able to set aside personal feelings for the project, right? It could be something like that. I mean, there's so many ways you could swing that. You could say that because they agreed to the protections to continue production, she felt comfortable, she felt like she was protected. Could be that too. So, you know, yeah. And I said here, could he just not say no? Like, context has to be missing. She may have requested exclusive time with the editors, but he's the director, he's the leader, and he's the co-founder of Wayfarer. And there is a point in time where he is hospitalized for like a potential spinal infection. And during this time, Sony says like, hey, we told Blake to re-include a bunch of your edits. Okay, so it sounds like Sony has power over Blake, or at the very least, they were able to convince her to add Baldoni's edits back in, because there's this whole argument about Baldoni like having his edit and then Blake coming in and completely taking over everything. Yeah. So it seems to me that Baldoni's trying to say that she had some sort of authority and power over him and Sony, and that she could potentially still ruin the movie and its release by speaking up about her negative experience. However, this is false and she is lying, then the truth would be on their side, and they would be able to prove not only potential lies, but go down the road of suing her for damages, especially damages for the sequel, because they want to make a second movie. I mean, no, that's not the ideal route, no, but it's the only situation that makes sense to me if Baldoni is innocent. Like, innocent until proved guilty, right? That's how they do it in America. If Blake Lively has no way to prove he's guilty, then why would people believe her? Why would people believe her? To me, it makes sense that Blake Lively would want to make edits to the film, and she even mentions in text messages to him about like how in the past directors and writers have like snubbed her. They've asked her for her notes, but haven't given her like credit for making notes and stuff. And she said that she has a problem where she won't advocate for herself and advocate to be seen or appreciated. And that's kind of where the Ryan Reynolds and T-Swizzle comes in. Yeah. Okay. Right. And there's this whole thing where Baldoni included this scene, totally unnecessary, but he wrote this scene where young Lily loses her virginity to the other male interest when they're like teenagers, and they included like a close-up shot of when the penetration occurs for virgin teenage Lily, which is weird because in the book the author chooses to not include that scene at all. They just say like, oh, you know, they spent the night together, and that's basically it. They don't go into detail, they just say some things happened, things occurred. And so for Baldoni to include this very particular scene, and including the woman's face, the facial expression when she gets penetrated, highly pornographic in my opinion. And it's not surprising considering Baldoni himself has admitted, even in his own lawsuit, that he's addicted to pornography, or he had an addiction, that he was exposed to porn when he was 10 years old, and that he has a porn addiction. It just seems to me that like it's kind of living like through your work in a way. Like, I thought it was highly disturbing hearing about that scene because, I mean, as a people, we talk a lot about like the importance of sex scenes in movies these days. How important are they? Just how important are they? Do we... okay, whatever. So I was speculating that maybe she really wanted to edit so that she could edit down that scene, or like make it less prominent to protect the other actress, Isabella Ferrer Rocher. Highly speculative on my part, just saying, but it's a possibility. I haven't seen the movie. I will be able to see it in 2 months. Yay. 2 months too late. It's like, I wonder if there is like the virginity scene still in there, because he says that the final cut ends up being Blake's cut. So I wonder if like these scenes that she didn't like were in there. Okay, so it ends with us virginity. It ends with us, Lily and Atlas. It's probably too hot for YouTube. Yeah. It's probably too hot for YouTube. What the fuck? Oh, no, I think it is in the movie. Oh my god, it's in the movie! Y'all, you need to see this. Oops, I added to my bookmarks. German's audio mixer, maybe. Don't expect me like that. Y'all, it's in the movie. The scene where she gets penetrated. This is Isabella Ferrer. The scene where she gets penetrated for the first time and the close-up of her face. Oh my god. Oh my god. Again, this was not in the book. Baldoni wrote this scene and put it in there. Oh my god, breaking news, wait. Because Blake Lively in her suit said that she thought it was a disgusting scene. She didn't like it, she didn't want it in there. She thought it was she didn't want it to be pornographic. She thought, I don't think the scene itself is pornographic. I think that it's definitely like this scene detailing where like the teenage virgin, she gets penetrated and her her mouth is agape, she gasps as the man's blah 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 goes into blah blah blah. It's like, it's so, we don't need that. We don't need it. If it was a film about a woman coming of age, and it was just, like, even then, it's still fucking weird. It's weird. And the fact that that scene is still in the movie makes me think twice about the allegations that it's Blake's final cut. Because Blake, I just don't think Blake would keep it in. But we will see. But that is my speculation. That is my speculation. Alright, so here's something about the power imbalance here, which is argued a lot. Blake Lively alleged and threatened to not promote the film if her demands weren't met. And apparently this happens constantly throughout production. But that would violate her contract. So that would cost her millions and would immensely damage her reputation with Sony, her reputation in general. Dude, she could actually be cast out of the industry if she did that. There is key information missing here, according to Emily Baker, and in my opinion, Blake Lively doesn't have the power here. Sure, she's got Ryan Reynolds. What is Ryan Reynolds? Like, I get that Ryan Reynolds is like a celebrity, but he's at the moment he's just doing Deadpool. I don't know. Is that I can see that they have power, but I think that it goes like, I guess it's like Ballsagna, Lively, Sony, Ryan Reynolds, Sony. Can't even see my other hand. It's Sony, bro. Fucking Tony Mottola, or whatever the fuck his name is. Okay, so does this make sense? Listen to this situation. This, I don't know. An employee decides that they've had it. They won't market the film unless their demands are met. They're threatening to go to papers about allegations that are categorically false and defaming. The employee would be breaching their contract with not only the production company, but also the distributor, Sony. And financer. Put that respect on Sony. If they were to come out about all these supposedly false allegations, which would make them vulnerable to being sued, not only for breach of contract, but for defamation and concealing the truth for their own gain, who has the power here? Who is in the position to make demands here? Does the employee somehow have infinitely more power than an entire corporate conglomerate that is basically in charge of the movie industry? Or does the employee have more power just because they so happen to be married to a person of high status? Let's be realistic here. Ryan Reynolds is not the king of America. He's not. And is the person who is allegedly lying through their teeth about every single thing, are they the person who has the leverage here? Or is the person who is armed with the truth inevitable to prevail through discovery in an obvious finding of situations that were alleged did not occur? It makes no sense. It doesn't. It just doesn't make sense, because for Blake Lively to ruin her entire career, her future career prospects, and also her husband as well, to destroy two long-standing careers over a movie that, I'm gonna be honest, like, were people really, like, how many people really care about this movie? I know that the book was like a bestseller, like, okay, don't be too pleased with yourself. Every single book that you see being like a bestseller is like, okay. I'm sorry. Is that Caddy? I feel like that's Caddy. I mean, I haven't got a bestseller, so sorry. But seriously, it doesn't make sense, because they keep saying that Blake Lively has all the power, her and Ryan Reynolds, her and Taylor Swift. For Taylor Swift to come out, like, if she were to come out and be like, yeah, I stand with Blake Lively about lies, Taylor Swift doesn't want to ruin her reputation. T-Swizzle, she's not gonna she's not gonna come out and be like, yeah, actually my friend who's like lying about all this stuff, I believe her. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. And like, everything I feel like once we get to discovery is so provably false. Yeah. So that's it. That's what I think about that. Hold on, I've still got some more stuff to go through. So yeah, all these allegations about Blake steamrolling Baldoni, insisting on her own cut, insisting on hers be released, and not cooperating, these can at least be completely confirmed or denied when a trial begins. There's so many witnesses, so easily refute claims made by both parties involved. But isn't it quite telling that Colleen Hoover, someone Baldoni established a long 5-year relationship with, unfollowed him? Again, you can say that the cast and crew all unfollowing him, they were just all terrified of Blake Lively lashing out. Again, what, Blake Lively's gonna name and shame every single crew member for like sitting back and not doing anything or something? I don't get what the angle is with that. I really don't get it. Like, this is where Baldoni's shit starts to like really smell here. That's what I think. And again, so when they had the promo tour for like the movie's premiere, famously Baldoni had to go into the basement with his friends and family while Blake Lively was like out doing like the proper premiere. So he was kind of excluded from that. Yeah. And I wrote this headline: Sony forces actress to attend movie premiere with her sexual harasser. So this is why I say, of course Sony relegated when Blake Lively was like, hey, I don't want to do the movie premiere with Ballsagna because he sexually harassed me. Yeah, I understand why Sony accepted her. Sony did convince her though to at least allow him to go, but they just kind of went around separate times. Yeah. Also, interestingly, Baldoni didn't file an intention for emotional distress, which Emily Baker was saying, like, why not file that? Why not just go all the way? Because his lawsuit pretty much says all of that everything she did was intention to steamroll the entire thing. I am very curious why they didn't file for an IED. I think that's very interesting that he basically says all of it, but he doesn't file for it. But maybe it's because, like, maybe arguing for intention is hard. Don't know. Yep, so the marketing campaign, I think we went over this, didn't we? Okay. I'll go over it anyway. So, the marketing campaign, very contentious. There was a set campaign signed off by Sony and allegedly by Baldoni as well. But it is alleged that Baldoni went rogue at the very last second and made his whole campaign about highlighting survivor stories, highlighting, you know, women's struggles, women's rights, women's wrongs. And there is text message evidence where he's saying to the PR people, like, can we focus the socials on highlighting survivors and highlighting abuse and stuff? And this happened at the same time that Blake Lively was doing the marketing promo as well. And we do see in the marketing promo that Sony wanted them to show it. Hold on. Yeah, I think this is it. Is this it? Wait, next page? Yeah, so in the marketing stuff, although I thought it was signed by all the parties, but this one doesn't show that. So I don't know about that. But yeah, apparently this comes from Sony, and they say, focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence. Empowerment is not just about standing up to adversity, but also about having the power to overcome within oneself and to grow from it, and developing agency to shape the future. Avoid describing the film as a love story or love triangle. It's the story of Lily learning how to take agency of her future. Avoid talking about this film in a way that makes it sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. And I think that, yeah, like Blake Lively and the crew, or the cast, they were all fulfilling their contractual obligations to present the movie as a more positive thing. And that makes sense to me. It really does. I don't find it that hard to be like, yeah, they were just doing what they were told to do. Kind of have to. I'm more surprised that Sony went off on this. I'm more surprised about that because Baldoni mentions in his suit that they had a domestic abuse organization partnered with them called Nevermore or something, or Always Stop, or No More. I think it was nomore.org. And they talk about how, like, the World Health Organization says that, like, 51 or 58% of domestic abuse is tied to alcoholism or alcohol use. When will this be over? Yeah, so they talk a whole lot about that. And then he criticizes Blake by being like, hey, she would never have done the stupid decision of promoting Betty Booze, or her alcohol brand, if she knew about that statistic. To which I'm like, well, if you're trying to market the thing in like a positive light, I feel like a lot of people, more than not, people associate like drinking with having a good time. I think that might be very charitable from my perspective. In saying that, I don't agree with the marketing promo. I thought it was stupid. Also, in Blake Lively's suit, she mentions that the hair care shit that was promoing during the movie, that was already set a year in advance. Way before any of that stuff was under wraps, allegedly. So, now, is it possible they could have looked at it and been like, okay, we should probably change the time we're going to market this because it just doesn't line up that well. I can totally see the marketing people on Blake's team being like, hey, you're about to have this knockout movie. It's so highly anticipated. It's going to be a great moment to get people to look at what your products are. And if you're looking at the promotion from the perspective of, we're talking about Lily and Lily's character and Lily's ability to just be like, she's more than domestic abuse. She's more than domestic violence. She is her own person, which is an opinion I would respect because in Baldoni's suit, I'm gonna link this here, he mentions a lot about how, like, they're surprised that Blake wasn't talking about the sexual harassment, or he was surprised that there were all these moments where she was around him and she wasn't concerned about, like, her own safety. And I just want to point that out and say, like, Blake Lively is allowed to still be in the room with you alone. Like, she doesn't have to make everything about this harassment that she allegedly experienced. But the way that Baldoni writes it is he writes it as if, like, it's so heinous that she doesn't make her entire personality about the harassment. You know? And I just think that's very telling. Again, my speculation, I don't know. Oh my god, did we do it? Are we fully through it? I think we're done, guys. I think we're done. Okay. So, this is, yeah, I mean, there was a thing about COVID. Honestly, I don't give a fuck about the COVID thing because I don't think he even mentions it, honestly. Who cares about the COVID thing? I don't give a fuck. There's like a time where her and her baby get COVID. Sad, obviously, but I think there was like allegations that he had breached employer contract stuff. Yeah. yeah, so we have all these text messages here. These are the forensic ones from Blake Lively, Jonesworks as well, excuse me. I'm not going to go over them now. I think this is going to be part 1. I think part 2 will go through like the text messages and I'll put context around them. Oh my god. Oh my god, longest fucking podcast episode in history. I didn't even do the timestamps. I'm gonna be sitting here doing the timestamps crying. Damn. Okay, so yeah, part 1 of my Ballsagna Lively investigation. Not much of the investigation part, but yeah. Oh my god. Well, I hope that was illuminating. I hope that was helpful to you. So sorry if that was confusing, but I'm proud of the work I did because it was really hard to do. Oh my god, my face is so red. It's like 30 today. It's like 33 degrees today, Celsius. And it is hot in here. Alright guys, I'm gonna go. Let me know if you want a part 2 where I go through all like the text messages on everyone's side. No sides here. Yeah, I still gotta watch the Emily Baker stream for the Baldoni suit because she only went through like a little bit of it. She didn't go through the whole thing. So I will be looking forward to that. But alright, I'm just gonna say, I hope you had a good time watching. Thank you so much for watching if you did. If you made it this far, holy shit, thank you. And I will see you next Monday. Alright. Let me know how this went. Okay. Alright. Thank you, lovelies. Goodbye.